So we will look at the other functions that we are yet to complete from the first notebook, and then we'll move on to the second notebook. So we started off with Python, and then we try to understand what print statement was, right? So starting today, I would request you to follow along with me. What I'll do is I'll explain a certain concept, and then you can start doing the other cells that are there in the notebook as such. You can execute along with me, and then we'll move along with respect to what is happening with respect to the session, right? So that is what will be the pace of the session, and that is how we'll go ahead starting today. Looks like we will try to be in sync with what is happening on the screen as well as what you're doing as well. Okay, we'll try to maintain a sync there.
Sir, good evening, sir. Sorry to interrupt right now. Actually, previous session, because of a few issues, I have attended the session through mobile phone. Now I have got my laptop, but to get this Jupyter notebook, Python notebook, can you share me link and just help me out so that I can also follow along with you?
Okay, sure. So this link, we need a Google Gmail account, and then we have to, let me try to show you this. So you have collab.research.com. This is the link that we are trying to use currently. So this link is what we will try to use for a certain period of time. And then what I'll do is I'll share an installation document where you will be able to install Python, and there is another library called as Anaconda. That is something that you will be able to install. I wanted to kind of run through how Python is done rather than focusing on the various versions of Python that are available right now in the market. So that I'll anyways cover again as we go further when the time comes from IDE. When we start doing things from IDE, we'll try to do everything on our individual laptops, not on the cloud environment. Right now, we are doing it on the cloud environment, which is basically Collab. This is provided by Google. This is the URL that we are seeing right now, which is basically collab.research.google.com. So if you hit this particular URL, right, and if you're logged into Gmail account, the requirement is we need to have a Gmail account, and then you can start creating new notebooks. Notebooks is basically a IDE, integrated development environment, where we can execute Python commands interactively. That is what the notebook helps us to do, right? And also it has links to, or it gets connected to GitHub also. That is something that is available. But right now we'll not focus on those aspects because these classes are primarily concerned at, or we're focusing only on the basics of Python. That is what we'll be trying to do. And then the notebooks that are provided to you, right? You will have this upload tab here. Try to browse through the notebook that is available, and then just click on that notebook and say open. This will open up the notebook just as what you see here. Okay. Once you
Okay, sir. Okay. Now, once I'll hit on that collab research and then I'll try to log in with my Gmail
right,
so that I'll get this the window which you are sharing, which is used for practice.
correct, absolutely. And then you can upload from here. And there is one more thing that we have to do. You will
Okay.
see here the runtime on the right hand side. Once you open the notebook, right,
Okay.
you'll have this file editor or the file pane and the file menu here. On the right hand side corner, just below the profile that you see here, there is a share icon, and then you'll have RAM and disk here. So this will get enabled only when we connect to a hosted runtime.
Okay. So I need to select that. I need to enable it, connect to a hosted
Hosted
runtime.
runtime, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And that,
I'll be just doing in a few moments. I'll be very quick to that so that at least I can follow up with the exercises what we are doing.
sure. So I'll wait for another 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll get started. Everybody, please try to be ready with this environment so that,
Then that's really fine, sir. Then 2 minutes means it's okay, no problem. Meanwhile, whoever are not having or whoever not kept this ready, will be keeping ourselves ready with that.
okay, all right.
Thank you so much. Sir, it has given me that window showing welcome to the collaboratory.
Yes.
Then where then later what should be my new notebook, sir?
New
I need
notebook not required for this thing.
no.
Uh,
Mm.
you can upload a notebook.
Uh, Upload. One I found the option upload. Then I have okay clicked on it. Then
Then
choose file.
navigate to the window where the notebook is there.
Acha, that I didn't keep. I think so, sir. Directly I have clicked on that collab.research.google.com.
Correct. Once
Hmm.
once that is done, then you can come to this window, right? Are you able to see this landing page?
Ha ha. Yes, sir.
Okay, and then you'll have here upload notebook,
Ha ha ha. Okay.
and that takes us to the upload tab,
Okay, sir.
and you'll see browse here.
Okay.
Click on browse and navigate to the notebook where the file is located.
Okay. I'll just follow the same.
All right, and once you do upload, right, you'll have an upload button at the bottom. Click on upload. Once that is done, or this uploads the notebook, and you'll see the notebook opening up in the Collab environment.
Sir, but when I selected upload file under the menu, file menu,
Mm-hmm.
this one is, it has opened me a new window, something. Then at the right side, I found that upload. After clicking that, it is not showing me browse. It is showing me choose the file.
Choose the file. Okay. See if it is allowing you to choose the file. Probably it is not rendering properly.
Maybe so because even I didn't type or keep any other files ready. But when I select choose the file, it has taken me to the main page of mine where I have documents, downloads, and all and all.
Okay. So, okay. Try to navigate to the file where it is located in some drive. You have downloaded
Mm-hmm.
it from the G drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Okay, sir. Right. Anyways, I'll try, sir. Then we'll start with the session. I'll be following anyways. I'll make down all the points and all. Then again, I'll take time and try, sir. No problem.
okay. All right. So then.
Yeah. Thank you
So,
so much.
so we stopped at the print statement here, where we started printing out this kind of string value to the console, right? So we had it and then backslashes, and then we discussed that backslashes is essentially a escape sequence character,
For the
and
new line.
for the new line, right? And
Yeah.
then it not for the new line, but if you use n, it would be a new line. But right now, it is
Acha.
only for the special character, the single quote again,
Okay. Okay.
right? So, but is the screen visible, right? Is the font
Yes, sir.
okay?
Yes. Yes,
Font
sir.
is fine.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So that is what helps us, and this backslash helps us in order to escape the character that is immediately after it. So this helps us to escape the single quote, and then it tells us it is a new world rather than trying to print as it is, or it is kind of throwing out as a new kind of a character as such. So it will try to help us escape that character. So it prints out it's a new world. If we didn't put this, let's say this backslash was not there, then this would tell us this was a syntactically wrong statement, right? So there are two
Yes.
kinds of things that we come across programming language. One is a syntax thing, and the other one is a semantic thing. A semantic is like the meaning itself is changing with respect to what we are coding. It could be a logical uh, uh, problem that exists in a program. But a syntax is like whatever the specification has been provided to us. When we say a specification, there is a set of rules that the programming language understands, right? Uh, and then we want to kind of say this is what it means, what we are trying to convey. So essentially, it is like how the rules are kind of structured when we want to write some instruction to the computer using a programming language. So that is essentially syntax. So in order to maintain the syntax or the syntactic representation of this correctly, what we are trying to do is we're using this backslash and then escaping this single quote and then trying to print this out. So we get this output as like this. It's a new world as we have done previously. There are different ways in which we have done previously. One was, we had seen what happens if backslash n was used. And again, if we use backslash and then a backslash n so that it escapes the backslash. And then we use backslash t as well. Backslash t is essentially, to represent tab space. And now we are using backslash. And immediately after it is basically a single quote stating that it is kind of escaping that single quote. This is how we will be able to do it. And the other thing is, if we want to kind of represent data or multiple lines, right, or textual data in multiple lines, we can also use triple quotes. So for example, I use something like this. This is how first line is made, and then this is the second line, and then we have the third line are printed. So everything has been put in a triple quote, and then we are trying to run this. So if we want to run a particular cell, now this is a code cell that we are trying to run here. As I explained, we have two options. One is a code cell, the other one is a text cell. So if you want to write some statements that describe what is happening in the coding area, we use a text cell. And if you want to write the code itself or write the program itself, we use a coding area, right? Or the coding cell. So this is essentially now 3-line statement, and we have enclosed that in triple quotes. Whenever we want to write multiple lines and still print that out, we can use triple quotes. That is what we have done here. We have used triple quotes and trying to print the statement out. So as you see here, we have triple quotes here, and then we have written 3 lines, and then we are trying to print that out. And in order to print or in order to run this cell, right?
So now we call it a text mode.
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
Code and text both are given, no sir, options. So now when you are printing multiple lines, we call it as a text, that which we are writing inside the parenthesis.
Yes, right now in the triple quotes, it is basically a text that we are representing. Anything that is represented in the triple quotes will be printed out because we are enclosing all of that again in the print statement, right? Print, then the open parenthesis, triple quotes, then 3 lines, close parenthesis, and then the end of parenthesis, or the triple quotes and the end of the parenthesis.
Okay, right? but actually it is a code because we are enclosing in print statement.
It is a code. Okay. So this entire line that we have written, or the entire set of lines that we have written, is nothing but code only, right? Because we want this to be executed and print should perform what has been passed to it. So this is essentially code that we are trying to execute.
Right. So statement with the text enclosed inside it.
Absolutely. So this is the print statement with is having multiple line statements that are enclosed in triple quotes, right? Okay. And also please note, we are also using something like hash symbol here, and then followed by some description of what is happening below in that coding area. So this hash symbol indicates that this is basically a comment, right? We want to put some kind of an explanation of what is happening exactly below it. And then we do not want this particular statement to be executed. Then we'll use hash. So hash indicates that this is basically a comment that we want to kind of mention within the code itself or wherever the code is there. Even here, we can still write hash and then we can do that. But then this is not a good programming practice because this is in triple quotes. This would have been still fair because this would be treated as a comment itself and not some kind of output that we want to generate. For example, in this cell area that I'm pointing it out, so we can still say this is still a comment here, right? But if you try to do this within this triple quotes here, right? Let's say I try to do this. This is the comment area and I try to do this. This will also be printed out because this is enclosed in the triple quotes, right? But if we do the same thing just against this print statement, immediately after this end of parenthesis, and then write 2 hashes and then the statement or the comment for it, then this would not be executed. It would still print out what is there only in the print statement. So that is the difference between how we enclose or what we write with respect to hash within the code and it should not really affect it because it is written inside the function, which is basically a print. Print is actually a function that is there in Python. These are inbuilt functions. We'll go over a lot of inbuilt functions as we go further. But this is basically an inbuilt function that is available that helps us to print content out to the standard console. Right? So that is how we'll be able to do it. And similarly, if you want to do this as well, it's the same thing. This is just the practice exercise that you would like to do. It's the same thing. Just try to, print, and then we have 3 quotes, and then we can say this is how first line is printed, and then second line, and then we have third line are printed, right? So this is what we are trying to enclose in, and then this is the same output as we have done before, right? So this is how we can use triple quotes in order to do this. And this need not be always 3 double quotes. This can be 3 single quotes as well. That is also still allowed. And we'll come across this triple quotes again as we go further. It is also used for commenting, right? If you want to have a multi-line comment, right? Multi-line comments, then.
And sir, if we give the comment with one hash.
Yes, I was coming to that question. So one hash would be sufficient. It is still a comment. If you provide 2 or 3 hashes also, it does not matter.
Achha, okay, sir. Okay.
Right. So what happens is generally in the Unix environment, we see multiple hashes or single hashes whenever it is starting. So for now, please go ahead with single hash only. That would be a best practice. Multiple hashes is just out of, somebody who's used to using 2 or 3 hashes like me. So, but generally it is only single hash. That should be sufficient.
Okay, sir.
All right. Okay. So thanks for clarifying that. So one hash would be sufficient. The other 2 are redundant. It's just out of habit because for multiple commenting that I've done in Unix and Python environments, I got used to it. So that is why I use 2 or 3 hashes. All right. Let's say we want to print something like this. What we're trying to understand is how do we format print statements, right? Till here, everybody is able to execute it. You have your collab environments ready and you're able to follow along. All right, so till there we are good. So now we'll move on to formatting of string values. So what we'll try to do is that we will try to format the print statement as well. So what it essentially means is that I will try to write something like this: product of, let's say, okay, I write something like this: product of 0, and I write right. This is what I have written. Okay, so now what we have written in the print statement is that we have written product of 0, which is again enclosed in curly braces, and again enclosed in curly braces is 2. So we have written indices, 0, 1, and 2 are the indices. And then in format, we are passing 2, 3, and 6, right? This is what we are passing here. So when we do this and when we kind of execute this, right? So what we see is, okay. Oops. Right, what we say is product of 2 and 3 is 6. So we have indices 0, 1, and 2. And then we are calling this format on the string. We are calling format and passing the values. So for the 0th index, we are passing 2. For the first index, we are passing 3. And for the second index, we are passing 6, right? So what it means is we want to pass values dynamically and then print them out by giving some kind of placeholder. So for the 0th index, the first value is placed. For the first index, the second value 3 is placed. And for the second index, the value 6 is placed, which is nothing but value 2. This is index 1, and this is index 0. So we can dynamically kind of populate these values when we are trying to print this out. So if you had variables like something like x is equals to 2 and y is equals to 3, and Z is equals to 6, right? And then we can have X, Y, and Z, right? So now we'll be able to get the same thing as well. Instead of passing the values as it is, we change the values and assign it to a variable and then print them out. So X is equals to 2, Y is equals to 3, and Z is equals to 6. So product of the first parenthesis, which is 0, and the second parenthesis is indexed by 1, and the third parenthesis is indexed by 2. These values correspondingly are passed over when it is printing out, right? This is what we'll be able to do. So another way of looking this is like we can also pass variable names directly. So we had passed something like that, right? So let's say I do X is equals to 2. Okay. Y is equals to 3 and Z is equals to 6. Something like we have something like this. And then I pass this something like this. Product of, I say X, right? And of X and Y is as a Z. Okay. And then I put a F here indicating this is formatting, and then try to execute this. So we see that whenever we use this F word just before this single quote, right, within the print statement, it kind of formats this. The variables are being replaced with the values that have been assigned to those variables. So X value is 2, Y value is 3, and Z value is 6. So that is how these values are being placed here, or kind of these are being used as placeholders and the values are being put there. All right. So another way of looking this is, let's say we have string values and I write empty strings like this. Right now, this is also formatting of the print statement, and we see that the first value is being taken as how, the second value is being taken as are, the third value is being taken as you, and the fourth value is being taken as doing. So this is how we'll be able to put the values back into those placeholders that are present there in the print statement.
So
Right?
it
So
is taking dynamically by itself, even without
absolutely,
mentioning. By
absolutely,
default, it is taking.
right,
Yeah, okay.
absolutely. Right. So so there is another small exercise here where we have what is the use of writing like this? So see, what happens in programs is like, whenever we want to format something or we want to present something like this, right? Instead of, let's say, how are you doing? We want to print name, place, animal, thing all the times. Okay. Just for an example, okay, we are playing a game and then I want to print something like this: name, place, animal, thing. Okay. So instead of writing them like this, what I do is I say name is equals to something. And I'll come to this again. We'll play this name, place, animal, thing as we go forward. Let's say name is Rakesh. Place is Delhi. All right. Then animal is tiger. And thing is, let me name this properly. We'll quote this. And thing is headphone. That's it. This is what we have. Now what happens is I want to print this properly using this formatting, or the string should be taken as what is coming here. So I say name, place, animal, thing, right? So when we do this, right, you will see this is how this could be formatted, or we can write this much more better. So when I take this in this fashion, right? Name is Rakesh, place is Delhi, animal tiger, thing is headphone. So if we want to kind of take the input dynamically and print this in a formatted fashion, this is also something that we can use, right? There are multiple ways of using the same thing, right? So this is how we'll be able to provide what should be printed out. There are four variables and there are four placeholders. For each of the corresponding placeholders, the dynamic value is being put into the placeholder itself, right? So this way we'll be able to use it. And then let's say we want to log these statements. Let's say we are trying to capture some input and log it into some logger file. In real time, we will have logger files, and nearer to this, it will be what you would see something similar to this, where the output is written to those log files. Right? Does this answer your question? Somebody had the question of what is the use of this? Right? Dynamically, we can do something, or yes, correct. That is also something that we can specify under the each attribute. That particular value is being placed. So name is being passed to this particular value. Place is being passed to this. Animal is being passed to this, and thing is being passed to this. Right? And there was one more questions. Are these videos recorded and would be shared? Yes, we are going to share these videos. So what is intended is that the playlist would be created for this, and then it would be shared. The links of this would be shared. Right. The values are being taken dynamically. That is what is being done here. The values are being taken dynamically. Okay. Right. So next thing is, like, let's say we have some name and then we want to place it here all the time instead of.
Sir, can you please just scroll up one, sir, to practice the previous?
Okay. Take about 2 minutes. I'll pause for 2 minutes and then you can we can go ahead.
Is it a dot operator after the double quotes, sir, before format?
Yes, this is dot format, and then we are passing x comma y comma z. Absolutely right. You're right. This is a dot. Every function that we have is being used dot except for print. Print doesn't have a prefix as dot. It is an independent function which takes an input. But right now, for this string, we have the format, and for that format, we are using the dot operator. All right, so we'll get moving. So we have seen some of them and we have seen formatting. Next thing is there is a lot more to print statement, right? There, and we'll explore some of the options here. So instead of passing just one string, we can pass multiple string values in print. So we can pass something like this: print hello, comma world, and this would print out the statement as it is. Instead of 2, let's say we pass few more. Let's say I do something like this. Okay. So as you see here, the output is formatted with whatever values we have passed, and each of them is comma separated, right? Every value is comma separated. Hello world, welcome to Python. So every value is comma separated and it is getting printed out. Right now, let's say we want to kind of change the separator between each of these string values, right? We have hello world, welcome to Python, and we are doing something like this. So instead of that, what I'll do is we have something called a separator option. Separator is nothing but the attribute name, and its value by default is space, right? That is why we get a space here. Hello world, welcome to Python is what we are getting here. But instead of the space as a separator, we want to change that and have a some other separator like colon or comma. Then this would be helpful. Now, why I'm trying to tell this is because this might be somewhat helpful if you are going for some kind of programming competitions, especially from HackerRank or something. These kind of tweaks will be helpful when we try to code them when we are participating in those competitions. Essentially, they ask us to program in any language, right? C or C++, Java or Python. But if it is Python, right, this kind of writing the syntax becomes a lot more easier as compared to C++ or Java. So Python kind of helps us in, some of the, especially when we go for these kind of competitions, or when we're going for an interview, right? And we are asked to program something. Python helps us in kind of, coming up with a minimal or a somewhat smaller syntax by using these kind of tweaks that are already there in the programming language, right? So what we do is, let's say if we wanted to separate them by double quotes, each of these words, instead of, they say, you need to change hello world, welcome to Python from this to welcome to Python. And again, please note that they would not mention that you are not supposed to do this. Like what I'm trying to say is that the question would not say that you are not supposed to use the shortcuts, but if they explicitly specify that you're not supposed to use the print and the separator in order to separate the strings, then probably we should not use this, and then try to see how we can concatenate. Either we have to go for some other additional means, which will go further when we get into loops. Probably there are other ways of doing this, but in single line, if we are supposed to express this, let's say we are given 5 or 6 string values and we want to concatenate them, or we want to join them using a separator like double quotes or double colons, then this becomes very easier to print it out in a single line. If this is what is the question is, then this can be done. It is just to show that how aware are we with respect to the programming language. That might be the only reason they might want to test it when it comes to Python. But if we are given a choice among 3 or 4 language, we are to choose something, then Python can be done. With Python, this can be done in this fashion, right? With a single line. Okay, so that is where this kind of question might help. So that is where this would be helpful. So similarly, if you want to kind of print, floating values, right? Float values, that could also be done in Python. That is also pretty straightforward. So we can do floating values as well. We have seen integer values, we have seen string values, and then we can also see floating values, right? So now what I would request you is, there is again the same thing using string formatting, right? This is just an exercise. Request you to take this. We are given height and length. So you need to print area of triangle is the area, right? In the sense that you compute the area and then print it out in a single line using string formatting. Try to attempt this, and then we'll look at this after 2 minutes. Okay, everybody able to execute this? All right. Okay, great. So that is how we'll be able to print the area of the triangle. So we had height with the value of 50. The base of the triangle was 10, and area is half into height into base, or a half into base into height. So 0.5 into height into base. That is what I've given here, and we want to print that out using string formatting, right? So I've used in this fashion formatting using the F word, and then the area of the triangle with height, and then height in curly braces and base in curly braces is area, right? So that is what I have tried to use this in this fashion, right? So this way we'll be able to format the string and print the statement as area of the triangle with height 50 and base 10 is 250, right? We get the answer in this fashion. Okay, so this is how we'll be able to do it. So let's say we are getting dynamically the values and then we want to print out for all those dynamic values, we'll be able to do them. Okay. So now we have seen how to kind of use these values in the print statement. And there are multiple ways in which we have seen how print statement can be used. But there are also places where we have to be somewhat cautious in how do we concatenate various values. Let us see some of them and try to get the understanding of it. So let's say we have x is equal to 10, and then we want to print this x as a numerical value by using print statement. So for that, we can use the previous formatting of print statements, or we can also use in this fashion. Print value is, and then comma x would also give us value is 10. So multiple ways of doing it. This is the another way of doing it, right? Let's say we want to concatenate or we want to append x value to the string and then print it out. So print value is plus x, right? If you are trying to do this, this throws an error. The reason is that value is enclosed in single quotes, correct? And this is a string value plus x is basically an integer value, right? So we cannot concatenate or we cannot append an integer value to a string value. That is the error it throws, right? We cannot concatenate or we cannot combine them. And as we see here in the output, it says type error can only concatenate string to string and not int. That is the error it mentions also. So we'll not be able to concatenate a string value and an integer value. So what is the alternative for this is that we have to convert this integer value into string before we concatenate. And how do we do that? We do it in this way. Print value is plus x is passed to a function called as str, where this integer value is converted into string value and then finally it is concatenated, right? That is what we get here. Print value is str of x. So we get value is 10. So whenever we want to concatenate and print them out, we have to be slightly careful. But if you are using formatting, then it is not a worry at all, right? Formatting helps us in directly passing the value and printing out the values as it is. Okay, so that is where the error comes in. If we are not converting the integer type to string type or a floating value type to a string type whenever we are trying to concatenate two different values. Each of them has to be string, only then the concatenation will go through. If they are not, then the concatenation will not go. Okay. And print value and also formatting, there are a lot of other options that we can do. But when we get into the data structures that are there in Python, probably we'll come back and see how we can use them. And there are multiple ways of working with them. All right. So till here, everybody is able to do, or are you able to follow along? All right. Okay, so we have already seen str as a function. So let's say we have the value as 10 and we want to convert that into a string value. Then we pass this particular value to str, and then that gives us the string representation of the integer value, right? Originally value was, or the value variable that we have here. So let us also try to print the type of it. So I try to type the type of that particular value. So now you see that the type of that value is integer, and then when we try to change it, it is being represented in single quotes, indicating that it is a string value, right? Similarly for 30.5, so we are trying to store that in this particular variable, and str of that particular value is basically given as 30.5 in string representation. Originally it was its type was essentially, right? It was essentially floating value, right? When we, okay, I think it's FL2. That is what it is. We try to put this here, right? So this is what we get here. It's basically a type float. It says it's a class of float, and then we get the values 30.5. So that is how we can verify what type it is. Okay. So that is how we'll be able to check or convert one value into a string representation of the values, right? So right now we have integer type, we converted that into a string type using str. Similarly for float, we converted that into a string representation using str by passing that particular value. Okay, so then we have str1 is equals to 10, right? That is what we have. And then we want to represent that as a string. So for that, we don't have to convert it into anything. So right now we are presenting this as str1 only. So print of str1. So we have 10, and then we are using quotes to, specify there is a space between it. And then we are trying to check the type of this str1. So str1 is of type str only for the first case. In this case, we are not converting it to any other type, right? Now, because this has been put in single quotes, 10 has been put in single quotes, we want to kind of convert that into another type. Let's say we want to convert that into integer type. The string representation of the value 10 has to be represented in the original integer form, right? We put this in a single quote. Right now, 10 is put in a single quote, indicates that this is a string type value, right? Now, when we try to print this out, this prints out the string type itself. Int of str1 will try to give us the integer representation of it. And when we check that, it is basically a integer representation. So this gives us the integer representation. How do we do that? Pass the string value into int function. That gives us the integer representation. Type of int of str1. This gives us the integer representation. Similarly, for floating value, let's say we have something like a float value, which is basically a decimal representation of the number. So 10.54 is represented as a string value, and that is put in str2. So str2 plus then we have quotes, and then we are trying to print the type of it, type of str2. This gives us str. Similarly, str2 quotes, and then float of str2. Float of str2 will give the value represented in float, right? This was originally string. Now we get the floating representation, which is basically 10.54. And when we check this particular type, it is basically of type float, right? That is what we'll be able to print it out. Okay, so we have 10.54. This is of class str. And now it is being converted into floating type bill. So guys, any questions till here? Can you check what was being done here?
Then a small question.
Uh-huh.
When in the first printf statement, when the integer value is converted into string, and when we tried to print it as string, the value was printed in single quotes.
Right.
When in the second code, when we have taken string in single quotes and we tried to print it, why is it printed as only 10, not in single quotes?
You mean to say here, right? This particular case.
On the top line.
This one,
Yeah.
10 is not being printed in single quotes, but in some cases it is being printed as it is, right?
Yes. You can see there, sir, in 22nd line there. 10 is being printed in single quotes.
Correct.
Here it is not printed in single quotes.
So what we can do is for such cases, this is something that, Python behaves like this. So whenever we're trying to do this, right, it kind of prints the value as it is because the quotes are not being assigned to it. So because we are printing this as a string value, and what we did is we wanted to check the value first and then try to print that out. String value is not passed as print. Let's say if I do this, something like this, right? What Python does is, sometimes it kind of removes the
Okay.
quotes when you are passing it to print. But then when I remove this print statement, right? Now this prints out, because now by default this is a string value. Print is not being used here. So whatever the cell input is there, it is being reflected onto the output cell.
Okay. Okay. Sir.
All right. So any other question, folks? All right. So if there are no questions, then I think this could be a logical break, because tomorrow we'll start with the other set of concepts. One is the built-in functions that we have, and then we'll move on to string built-in functions. So we'll stop here for today, and then we'll continue tomorrow. All right. Thank you so much. Meet you again tomorrow. Thank you.
Sir, insights of tomorrow's topics?
Tomorrow we'll continue with the inbuilt functions that are there. Then we'll move on to operators. And then we'll, if time permits, we'll look at how to capture input from the command line using the notebook.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay, and then slowly we'll move to the IDE also. After certain topics are done, we will install Anaconda on our laptops. And then we'll use either Visual Studio Code or PyCharm. One of the IDEs will start using it and then execute from the IDE itself.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.